Hey besties, let's throw some shade, honey. You ready to get into it? Hey besties, it's Behind the Shade. Happy New Year's to you. I missed you. Did you miss me? I've been on, but we missing shows because of the holidays. Did you enjoy your holiday? Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year. But baby, we got to get into it. It is today's tea. We're going to talk about the cult of the Real Housewife over there at Faith Temple Pentecostal Church in Salt Lake City, Utah. Uh-huh. Founder Rosemary Cosby and Bishop Robert C. Cosby, Pastor Robert C. Cosby, First Lady and Evangelist Mary M. Cosby. See, y'all keep calling her the pastor. Robert is the pastor. She's the first lady. She's an evangelist, so she can preach. She's not the pastor. Child, I missed y'all so much, right? So I was gonna get on here and just make up some stuff to talk about. You know what? I was gonna talk about Natalie Nunn and the Cam Newton interview, but baby, I couldn't finish it. She is so ghetto. Oh God. But she's a boss girl. And who like her, like her. Those are not my lanes. Cam Newton, Natalie Nunn, not my lanes. Zeus Network baddies, not my lane. I didn't know who was interviewing who. He asked a question, she deflected, she asking him questions. She keep throwing up in his face that she rich too, and she a boss, and all the bras is a boss. Excuse me, all the baddies are bosses and rich, and she is faithful to her husband, and she do what she want to do. She's a free spirit. She from San Francisco. I was like, what? She's a Bay native? I can't believe it. But baby, couldn't get into that, couldn't bring it to you. But go to Cam Newton's uh, YouTube and you can find it there. The interview was over 2 hours long. I tapped out in about 30. Okay. Then I was going to talk about Zaria and Troy. Child, they down there in Florida on vacation, in Palm Beach, Florida. They had two club appearances. Child, somewhere along the way, at one of the appearances, she didn't hit Troy upside his head with his phone. She looking through it. They say when you're looking for stuff, you're gonna find it. So she's hurting him a lot. He's denying it. The police were called. She was arrested. She did a couple of days in jail. They tried to get a bond out for her. They changed her charges from us hurting with the unalivable piece of something with no intent to unalive the person. And the second charge was battery, touching, or striking someone. Then they changed the charges and added domestic to it. That means somebody that live in your house, kids, parents, husband, wife. He denying it. On a police report, he trying to lie about his name because he's trying to save face, but we all figured it out. And then Mama Karen confirmed that his name is Troy Dale Jones. It was him. He denying it. He turning on his fans, calling all his fans stupid. Excuse me, sir. And he gonna stick beside her. So hey, two felons. Oh my goodness. Is this man still on probation? Because can they still live together? They gonna both be in jail. And he can forget seeing baby Troy because Yana ain't gonna let him have baby Troy ever, 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 ever again. They went to Florida for Christmas, and it was her parents, Troy, Zaria, I guess her son, their new son, and baby Troy was there too with matching pajamas. They was having a good time. But I think, isn't Zaria bipolar, y'all? So enough about them. You can see them all over everything. They on there talking. He cussing you out and blah blah blah. Anyway, then I was gonna get on here and talk about Britt Edie, besties, from the Real Housewives of Atlanta. So you heard she is filing for divorce. She is done with the lavender marriage with Michael. Child. We knew that when we first saw Michael. But you can't tell with the husband of a housewife because you can't tell if he just don't want to be on camera or if he just don't like you. But the chemistry wasn't there and he ain't got no money. So we knew that wasn't gonna work. So child, the people are like, well, let Britt come back to Housewives. Excuse me. No, let Kenya come back. Because, honey, I heard that hair spot is closed. So Kenya need the money. Okay. Then I was going to get on here, y'all. Who else? I was going to talk about Candiace Dillard Bassett from the Real Housewives of Potomac. She does not plan on returning to the show next season. She don't need the stress, because they accused her husband of inappropriate behavior, Giselle and Ashley. And I remember the episode where she was somewhere at a function, some event, and she broke the fourth wall and she called Eric out, the showrunner, one of the producers. Did you do this? Did you tell them? Did you? So she's like, she's not a fan of Truly Original. Has nothing to do with Andy or Bravo. It's the production company she ain't fooling with. And now she's a new mother. It would have been really nice. Y'all know I wanted to see not Monique, Candace. I wanted the her and her Kleenex to come back. But I heard Giselle told production or whoever, look, I'd rather have Monique back than Candace. And y'all see what happened. So, honey, light skinned, green eye bandit over there, turkey neck is over there calling shots, honey. Okay, so I was going to talk about all that. But, honey, we got better things to talk about. Did I get everything out? It seems like I'm forgetting somebody. Hold on, y'all. I talked about Natalie, Candace, Britt, Zaria. Was there anyone else I wanted to talk about before we get into the real deal? Oh, and then I was trying to watch Tamar's interview. She was with Fat Joe and Jada Kiss. Child, Fat Joe is so ghetto. He's so loud. He talks so much. He's so New York. And I'm still on the fence about Puerto Ricans being able to use the N word because if your ancestors were not enslaved, I don't think you should be saying that. So I'm still on the fence about him being able to use the word because our DNA is in everybody. Hello, everybody. So that's not enough. Were your ancestors taken from your homeland and brought here? I just want to ask. So anyway, enough about all that, y'all. Tamar, but she just talked about her music and she confessed on how she cheated. Sounds like she cheated with the white boy. She went and spent the block with David, her African boyfriend that she had after Vince. Seemed like she spent the block with him, and that's what this Heartbreak Retrograde album is about. Some of the music is good. So anyway, I couldn't get through it. Fat Joe is just loud, takes over but I liked Fat Joe and Remy Ma when they filled in for Wendy Williams. I liked him on that platform. But here, he has more liberty and he's just super just over talking but he's funny, but I just wasn't in the mood. But let's get into what we're here for, okay? Child, I want to talk about Mary, Martha, Jefferson, Harris, Cosby, honey. Who? Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, honey. You know Mary, funny, quirky Mary. Uh-huh. So she is being accused of her church, her grandmother's church. She's being accused of it being a cult. And a cult is meaning of manipulation, control, a need for money, pumping fear in you that you don't want to leave. They make you feel like your salvation will be lost if you leave them. They isolate you even from your own family. So yeah, they had a cult expert on there and I loved it because he was breaking stuff down and I will be doing that here. But it's up to you to decide. Whatever, right? But it's just interesting. If nothing else, it's entertainment. So there's a 3-part series on TLC, I believe. Yes, and it's called The Cult of the Real Housewife. So her boyfriend, because it was Michael, I believe, he was looking at a picture of them when they were kids, and he described Mary as being mean. She was a bully. She picked on the other girls to gain control. She is materialistic, blah, blah, blah. Now, honey, Mary is worth $5 million. She's one of the richest housewives, okay, in Salt Lake City. Um, Off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone who may be richer than her. I don't think. I'm not sure. But we know her grandmother gave her the church, all of her businesses, because there was multiple businesses, and Mary gained her husband. Yes, grandma wanted one of the girls to take care of Robert Sr. So that was either Mary or Denise, her sister. Robert came into the picture when Mary was 3 years old and Denise was 5. Okay. When he married, Mary's grandmother name was Rosemary, but they referred to her as Mama. So I'll call her Mama. When Mama married Robert Sr., no, take that back. When Robert Sr. and Mary got married, she was 25 and he was 45. And then, they had their son, Robert Jr., right? And with all this scandal and mess and cult and confusion and fear pumping and manipulation and control and talking about you going to heaven or hell. And child, I see why that boy is going through them issues. I see why he's doing illegals and now police activity. And girl, how could you survive in a house like this? How could you, all the stuff you've been hearing about your mother and your father? So there are recordings, plenty of recordings in this 3-part series of Mary fussing at her congregation about not giving her enough money for her birthday, calling these people poor and stingy. Child, what? She mad. She only got 14 birthday cards for her birthday. The organ player was like, I gave this chick, he said chick, and he wanted to say the B word. I gave this chick $1,000. You think I gotta thank you? No. Now, the sister, Denise, said that Mary had a nice spirit. She was cool. They lived together throughout their adult life. And, she knows that Mary had respect for her for being the older sister. But, for her to marry Gramps, they called Robert Sr. Gramps, Gramps, like grandpa. She said there was just like, what's the end goal here? Why are you marrying our grandfather? This is changing the game. So, she described when they got married that they became cult leaders. Like they would have these saint meetings where they would talk about money. They wanted you to cash out your 401k, and she was giving like $5,000, and they wanted debit cards, credit cards, child money order, cash apps, Venmos, Zales, and even Robert Sr. would have the ushers block the door so you couldn't leave after church. Child, I'm like, huh? So then we meet the Enoch family. That's Rosalind, Michael, and Ernest. Remember, Michael was her first boyfriend when they were kids. So this is the family. They joined the church after their father was sick of churches, but he decided to give church one more chance because he raising these kids. I didn't hear about a mother. So he has these 3 kids. So when he went to mama's church, he was like, I like it. So they became family. So these are like cousins now, right? You know how we got those cousins, right? So then Michael's daughter passes away in a terrible car crash. She was ejected from the car. She flew through the sunroof and down into a ditch like 30 feet, right? So there's a clip, and I remember this. Mary is at Whitney's house on the show telling her 2 kids that, wear your seatbelts because, it's not good. And then even Whitney's daughter was like, well, did she survive? Mary was like, no. So they don't appreciate that she's on the show mocking the unaliving of their daughter, niece, and it's supposed to be her niece. That little girl looked up to Mary. So they don't, they don't fool with her, of course. So even the dad, Michael, he had a GoFundMe to cover this little girl's funeral expenses. I think she was like in her early 20s. She had two kids. She left two kids here. And so Mary told the members of her church not to help Michael, don't donate because that's taking money out of her account. And, the congregation listens to Mary because they believe she is God. Now, what in the blasphemy is going on? Mary, you are very entertaining on the Salt Lake City. You got these funnies, but baby, I can't rock with no blasphemy. And this is the top of it. You are not equal to God, Mary. And these people should know that you're not equal to God. You are a human being just like them. How does this brainwashing even work, besties? I can't do it. But she's controlling these people. So then we meet Cameron Williams. Now, do y'all remember him from like season 2 or whatever? He was Lisa's friend. And honey, he comes on the scene. He been looking for a church. He was out of church 3 years, besties. He was saving his tithes for 3 years. So he gets to Faith Temple Pentecostal and he's all in. So he giving up all this money. He is financing his house. Did he lose the house? I want to say he lost his house, but he didn't gave over $300,000 to this church. And then, child, him and Mary had an affair. Honey, they was going to the basketball games, going to eat, going on trips. She was whining, dining him, buying him expensive stuff with his money. He was all, oh, I was just all in. He was all in. He was all in. With this dummy, this was with your money. She was using your money. So, child, when he finally got fed up, because they said he was smart, but he developed a brain tumor. A brain tumor. He stepped away from the church. He had to go get therapy, and all out the blue, he passes away. Okay, y'all, that's 2 people that we have lost. You gonna see where I'm going with this. So before all that, they were saying how Cameron was smart. I know he was handsome. Smart is to be determined. But when you're gullible for the sake of Christ and salvation, you don't know no better. I mean, it can happen. We'll get into what the experts said. So, child, Cameron was fine, but he said he needed therapy when he left Mary, child. So he said he is the reason why Mary got on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Now, remember, he was friends with Lisa. Lisa was mentioning that they needed to cast another housewife. And he was like, oh, yeah, put Mary on there. He wanted to expose Mary. And she was gung-ho to get on. She was like, yes, let's do it. I want to do it. She was all in from the jump. He didn't have to convince, bribe, nothing. She was all in, 10 toes down. I'm like, what? So Mary gonna say he passed away because he lied on her and he was talking about the church. See, some of this stuff needs to be investigated. That's all I'm saying. So Mary, don't let me find out you are responsible for these people because they say something. Where do you get that from? So the cult expert, I'm gonna answer my own question because I want to know more about the grandmother, because we all talk about how crazy Mary is, right? But for your grandmother to say, I want you to marry my husband just to keep the fortune in the family. Come on, girl. Grandma, mama, Rosemary, pastor. What's up? What's up? What happened in your childhood? Something happened because Mary's mama ain't. Mm-mm. So the cult expert tells us cults are based on their need and greed for power, money, and intercourse. Okay, there's a high brainwashing going on. They want to exploit your finances. They love bomb you. They get you. They look for situational vulnerabilities. So, like people who move to the city or the state, they're new. They don't know nobody. People who have breakups, divorce, loss. They're off balance. They want to control you and make you fear them by using God's name on everything. Blasphemy. God is not mean, and he don't require all this drama. Okay, so Mary would, Mary would, sleep with Cameron and, on a Saturday night and be up in the pulpit preaching on a Sunday, girl. I said, what? Have him all in the pulpit too. Why he in the pulpit? He ain't no pastor, no minister. You can't just let anybody in the pulpit. And they never said if Mary's mom was a minister, but I'm going to assume she was. So we meet Denise is the sister. So she was like, I lost my grandfather when Mary married him. She like, huh? He was 20 years younger than Mama. They didn't have any kids. This is Rosemary, Mary's grandmother. They so let me get into grandma. Mama was from Indianapolis, Indiana. She was a missionary. So there was a 95-year-old lady that was on there. They was missionaries together. That woman is still alive. Faculties are intact. She was just in a little wheelchair situation, but looked good. She didn't look her age. Faculties intact. Honey, she was telling that story like it was yesterday. They were missionaries, and honey, they said God told them to go to his state, go out west, move there, because that's what God told them. Go to Salt Lake City. They was like, Salt Lake City ain't nothing there but white people and salt. I said, and a lake. Y'all forgot about the lake. So, honey, she packed up her and her 4 kids, and honey, they went by foot, train, and hitchhike to get to Utah. Didn't know nobody there. And I'm looking at all these clips, and I'm just amazed, besties, that there was this many Black people in Salt Lake City. I am amazed. Okay. So Mama gets to Salt Lake. She get a house. She start preaching in her living room. People coming by. It's getting full. She was doing housekeeping work on the side. That was her hustle, right? She brought then she bought her church from her savings. Then she opened up restaurants because she didn't want her kids to go without. She wanted them to have resources. We learned later that this woman had mortgage companies, restaurants. We'll get into it. I wrote it down, but I'm just going off what I remember. I'm like, wow, this woman was pretty incredible, but something ain't right with her either. So she would still travel back to Indiana to have these tent meetings, and that's how she would recruit more people and get them to move to Utah. Huh? Okay. All right, Harriet Tubman. So, shoot. So, this is where she meets Robert Sr. He comes to a tent meeting. He all in, you know. So, she moves him into her guest room, but he had other plans for her. And, the church was like, he trying to holler. And she like, no, he's 20 years younger than me. And I was like, wait a minute. He was 20 years younger than Mama, 20 years older than Mary. So Mama and Mary is only 40 years apart. That's a young grandmother, but it's possible, of course. So he moves into the guest room, but he like, So they decide to holler, get together, get in a relationship. So she like, okay, well, we gonna get together. And she wanted him to carry on her ministry because she's older, she wanted him to take on the torch. So I guess she gamed him up. They got married, and all of a sudden he became a bishop. This is when Mary was 3. So we learned that Mama and Robert adopted 2 sons. They were brothers. So I guess she had 2 girls. They never talk about the other daughter, just Mary's mom, but you see her on a little map. Okay, so that brother, one of the brothers is on. Ooh, honey, he hates Robert Sr. He called him Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That he got plenty of personalities. He's a mess, honey. So Robert Sr. was in the military, so he was trying to raise these boys in the church. They would have a brotherhood meeting on Saturdays, and he was like doing military drills with them, and it became abusive. Oop, sorry, it was a lot. It became a lot. The cousin was talking about it, and you could tell they are still, 40 years later, they are still traumatized by this. That his grandson, the light-skinned guy, Dan sat there and cried. He had to stop talking. Overstimulated behind that past. And honey, that other son said he hates Robert Sr. Okay. So this was going on. Mama didn't know until one of the other brothers told and snitched on Robert. And then that's when Mama stopped the brotherhood meeting. She was like, because now you doing too much. But she stayed in the marriage because back then, they didn't divorce back in them days. Okay. So, yeah. So then we go back to Denise, the sister. She said that she don't have a relationship with their mother. And then she was talking about Mary when she was growing up, how fast she was. She was into bad boys who had money. She was promiscuous. She ran away from home a lot. She was very materialistic, I said, and is very materialistic. Didn't go to school, registered for school, but didn't go to class. I said, wait, what? Didn't go to class. So doing too much. And then mama ended up disfellowshipping Mary. She was disfellowshipped from the church. That means you can come to church, but you gonna sit on that pew and that's it. You can't be in the choir. You can't be an usher. You can't play no instruments. You just gonna sit on that pew and be a seat filler. So during that duration, Mama passes away. Oh my goodness. So it seems like to me Mary was not as close. I don't know. Because I don't know if she was coming to the church still or not. Was she still coming? You don't know. So then she passes away. Robert takes over the church and he don't know what he doing. So he go get Mary and move her into the house. They going out to eat every night. And then he buys her a BMW. The sister was like, well, where is my BMW? I said, well, he ain't gonna marry you, honey. He gonna marry Mary. He gonna marry Martha. And she was a Harris at that point. Yeah, so Mama left them, the church, 5 homes. And I remember this when Mary first got on Housewives. Yeah, I have a home in Vegas, New York, I think Indiana, and wherever. And anyway, yeah, she got houses. Was it California? I don't know. She got houses, child. Had a daycare, a mortgage company, restaurants, and took her husband. But Mary was already married. She was married to a guy from church named Dana Harris. They were trying to blur out the last names on the divorce documents, but they didn't see that they left his name. You could see his name. Harris was his name, Dana Harris. So they were married. Yeah. She divorced him in the same month she married Robert Sr. But they flash back to a reunion when Andy Cohen asked her, did you divorce your husband to marry your grandfather? No, we just had irreconcilable differences. Child, they divorced September the 8th. She married Robert in a private ceremony September 27th of the same year, same month. Ooh, this is some scandal for your child. So Mary's mother, her name was Rosalind too, like the other lady, to play cousin. That was interesting. They had the same name spelled the same way because Rosalind is a name you can spell a few different ways. So anyway, that was just interesting. So Mary's mother was against all of this. How is you marrying my daughter? Because she felt like she felt like Robert Sr. should have married her instead. She deserved the church and the restaurants and the mortgage companies and the daycare and the husband, honey. Yes, honey, she caused a big scene at church. It was a huge walkout at that church. They showed the footage, honey. She got up there in that pulpit and was fussing and telling her how wrong and disgusting they were. Half the church was down for her, half the church was down for Robert and Mary. It was chaotic. The police were called, and half the church left with Rosalind, and she started her own church. And I almost want to think it was the same name, but a little different. I don't know. But she started her own church, and half the church left. Woo! And then Mary gets on the scene, and she started taking over. She's directing the choir. She preaching. She leading everything. She doing everything. She taking over because Robert didn't know what to do. He's used to mama doing everything. So he gonna make Mary be mama. So what else? So when they said that, so Mary was saying how her mother wanted to marry Robert Sr., but her mother was married, or maybe not. Maybe she wasn't married back then, but she's married to a Mexican man. And in the clip, I believe that's the same man that's sitting next to her in the church. She had on this big old hat, feathers up to the heavens. The mama had on the same hat. I was like, them hats look awfully similar. Child, I was all into them details, child. But so she wanted to get married, and that's why they fell out. So, yeah, Mary and her mama never got cool. So after that, the church went very dark, and that's when it started to feel like a cult and not a church. That family said, honey, them people ran that church into the ground. They was surveillance in the church, calling people when they didn't like something that happened that they didn't like. Something if somebody did something they didn't like, they was calling them while they was in church. Why are you not at church? What's going on? But they talking about they put cameras up, but that church already had cameras because when Mama was the pastor, they had a lot of footage. Like, who was recording that? Because those were not actors. There were some actors in the series too, but there was a lot of footage. So that church was already under surveillance, but she was doing it for the greater good. But I don't believe that because Mama was off too, to even just say, I don't want to lose nothing I build. So you keep it in what? But she felt bad because she felt like she took Robert's childhood, like his young adulthood away because, he was younger and she put him in church. So I guess she wanted him to live his best life because clearly she knew she was sick and not going to be here forever. Ew, it's a mess. So, okay, what else? They're surveillancing people. Okay. So they started busting people out. They wanted people to, start writing down their confession letters like a Catholic church does. Pentecostal don't do that. But oh no, your confession is not going to be private because they're going to be in the pulpit telling all your business at church. And then, got people not talking to you because they judging you and all your confessions and stuff. If somebody slept with somebody in the church, they not talking like, oh, goodness. Then Mary and Robert started making them work for them for free. Housekeeping, butler, cooking, running errands. Even her, this was a mess, y'all. Let me take a deep breath. Yeah, Mary would tell them, you going to work for me until you pass. And if you don't, you going to go to hell. I mean, the mind control that this girl had on these people. So they was doing free labor for them, never paid them because she made them feel like they were special. So the white family, the oldest sister was working for them, dogging her out. She was having terrible days in that house, in that mansion. She ends up passing away. And the brother and the other sister were going to the church. The brother was a bus driver. He was giving up all his money to the church. So the other sister was like, you need to stop. You are a bus driver. You ain't got a whole bunch of money. You just giving him all your money. What are you doing? So, honey, Mary put that sister out and didn't let her come to her sister's funeral. I know you lying. What? My sister passes away and you have all the control to funeralize my relative, my blood relative? Child, this was a cult. Child. Whoo. She was so sad when she was talking. She was so sad. And so the cult expert calls this dependent, obedient followers. And Robert and Mary were destroying families, even their own, right? So Robert told his grandson's wife, had her come on a trip with them to Vegas. They go back home and he tell her that she's in love with him. Mary, like, you love my husband. You want my life. Baby, that is your grandson's, your step grandson's wife. She is happily married. They got 2 daughters. Child, she like, no, I love you. I'm not in love with you. This is the love bombing. They accused her of being jealous of Mary, envious, want to be in love with him, want the life, want him, want to be the first lady, because they attacked your confidence, and got you just true brainwashing. So it worked for her a little bit. They would have her come to the house without Dan, the grandson. Then she could come up to the house with the kids, but not him. So that was, causing all kind of stress and separation between their marriage. Whew, child. So then, when that didn't happen, Mary put Dan out the church. He was like, Then Mary humiliated her own sister. She had a disability, something about her knees, and she was shouting, she would fall, and they laughed at her. And then they tore into her so bad until she had a mental breakdown. God spoke to her in that breakdown and told her that the church was a cult. Look up into the sky, get your butt up out of here. Okay, so then the last part of the cult is the manipulation. Robert was coming on to the women in the church. I was waiting for that. Okay, Mary had an affair. What about Robert Sr.? So yeah, he was putting the fear of God in these women. They didn't say if he was successful or not, but these people, when they left the church, they needed they made a support group for these ex-members. They needed therapy when they left that church. Child, so then they talk about Mary in the breakdown of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, how she did season 1. And, we all thought she was weird. Ugh. Season 2. And then all her business started getting, everybody was talking about her. So she ducked out and did not do the reunion for season 2. So then she didn't come back for season 3. Then she came back as a friend of in season 4. But she came back, honey, didn't talk about that husband. We ain't seen Robert Sr. since. She didn't talk about that church. And then she came back as a full-time housewife for season 5 and season 6. Now remember, season 5, Robert Jr. was her storyline with his, problems. And here we are. She never had to explain much. She never had to show us much. Season 6, we know that she remodeled the church. And her cousin is still hanging on by her side. So I guess he's still drinking the Kool-Aid. But I believe all the people who have passed away, and I know people pass away every day, but I think that niece's story needs to be investigated. Cameron for sure, her mother, maybe even a grandmother. Who else passed away? The lady that worked at the house. Child, you can't make this stuff up. But besties, please drop down in the comments. Let me know what you thought about this series. It's 3 parts. Woo, baby, thumbs up the video, like, subscribe, make sure your notification bell is on. And I'll be back tonight with Love and Marriage Huntsville, honey. Don't make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll be back. Bye, besties.